Now, the late minister in the Presidency, Jackson Mthembu, spent a portion of his life working under the banner of the South African Council of Churches as a media and field officer from 1987 to 1990. Let's talk now to Bishop Malusi Mpumlwana, who knew him at that time. Thank you so much indeed for joining us, and welcome to the program. Our condolences, first of all.
Thank you. We do express our condolences to the Mthembu family. He was such an amazing young hard worker. He was working closely with Sakima Xozam, who was the communications director at the time. And you will then imagine that this was the time of the transition when, the end of the state of emergency towards the unbanning of the ANC and the release of Nelson Mandela. Those days, both in the Institute for Contextual Theology and in the theological activists, there was the practice of a very careful social analysis that enabled us to be able to predict what's going to happen next. And it is that culture that I believe made Jackson such a sharp person, because he came out of a culture of analysis where every question was asked until there's no more question to ask. And I remember that when he became the spokesperson at the presidency in the context of COVID-19, I called him up and said, Jackson, Mr. Minister, this is a difficult time. Truth is going to be very important. People need to know exactly what is going on at all times. Remember that truth is justice. Jackson says, Mfundisi, you know me. I'm from a culture of transparency. There will be nothing that will happen that we do not tell the public. If ever you find that something that is untrue, call me. Just send me a text and I'll fix it. He also was a very realistic person. When he lost his daughter, and I called him and he said, oh, Mfundisi, this one has shattered me. But I'm having to learn that death is an ever-present reality of life. And I'd like to believe that he would be saying that to his family and to all South Africans today. And particularly because the death of COVID is ravaging the whole country. And in a way, his death becomes a message to the rest of us on how we should consider how to live with this challenge and how to mourn in the context of this challenge. And I would hope that people will remember that even with the pain of the loss of Jackson Mthembu, we shall make sure that as we honor him, we remember that he would have wanted us to keep the regulations and be true to everything that he has believed in.
Let's go back to the time he was with the South African Council of Churches. And one of the things I'm starting to appreciate is there was something about him that put him in the world of communications, even as far back as then.
Yes. It is because information was the most important currency of the time. Remember that there was a state of emergency in South Africa from 1985, where you couldn't even say that Malusi has been arrested unless the government announced it. If they don't announce it, it doesn't happen. If it says Jackson has been shot dead, you can't say so until they themselves announced it. So the churches then became the channels of communication. So Jackson came in as both a field worker, a comforter of families, as well as a communication and information gatherer. And that's really how it happened. And that information and communication became such an important, such a prized part of our work, that there was no way that one as in fact, one of the executive members of the SABC of the time, Bishop Malusi says that he was a genial and energetic young hard worker, and that's exactly how Jackson was.
Throughout the last day or so, the one theme that keeps coming up is that whatever task he was given, he did it diligently and quite passionately. Is that how he was during that time?
I would say that it was the character of the time. Not only remember that people didn't really. I mean, there was no such a thing as a serious pay in the job those days. It was more about everything you did because it was a calling, it was a vocation, it was a mission, it was an assignment of duty, and that's the attitude with which all the workers of the SABC at the time were. Remember that this is an organization whose offices were being bombed, where people were being banned. And so it was not a place where it was not like working in a company. It was really a hard to stand for the truth in those days. The Standing for the Truth campaign of 1988 is in that environment that Jackson was working. So it was this passion for social justice and public good comes from an environment where this was a natural way of being. And that's what the SABC has always been, and that's why it continues to stand in that way in the midst of all difficulties.
All right, and then perhaps just from a personal...
And that is also why I was able to say to him, remember, Jackson, that I say, remember, Justin, that truth is justice.
All right, and then perhaps from a personal point of view, what are you going to remember him the most for, apart from that which we've seen in the public and in the world of politics?
A disarmingly honest person. If he has done something wrong, Jackson will own up to it, and I think everybody will attest to that. He'll own up to it with a laugh and a smile, and therefore make amends. That's the sort of person he always has been, and I would like to believe that. I mean, I don't want to say this is because of the SABC, because it's his character, it's his family, it's his way he has always been. And I think that he was drawn to an environment that treasures and cherishes that, because he was always a very honest person. Probably one of the few politicians whose word you can really say, you know what he says, it probably is what it should be.
Bishop Mpumlwana.
I know that there was a politician who said that lying is necessary.
Bishop Mpumlwana, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much indeed for giving us this time and helping us remember this man who's being so fondly remembered by so many. Thanks so much indeed.
Thank you. We'll pray for his soul. Thank you.
All right, that's Bishop Malusi Mpumlwana helping us to remember the late minister in the presidency, Jackson Mthembu.